Next, she's already here, Gisela Domey. She's going to talk about Hilfswerk International, an NGO in Central Asia, as science communicator between the society, governments, and the private business sector. Thank you, Gisela.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning again. My name is Gisela. I'm a natural hazard postdoc in Poland, but sometimes in my spare time, I'm also the web administrator of Hilfswerk International. And in this function, I would like to present to you its role as a science communicator between science, the society, government, and the private business sector in Central Asia. So what is Hilfswerk? The Austrians might know. It's a non-government, unpolitical organization, a charity that is active in social medical care inside Austria. But they also have Hilfswerk International, globally active since 1978 in development cooperation around the world with various projects, now rainforest protection, mangroves, education, social inclusion, or punctual immediate relief campaigns like for earthquakes, for example, like in Turkey and Morocco. They follow the EU regulations and, of course, the local regulations in each country. Recently getting funding from the European Union and the Austrian Development Cooperation, but also from other fundings. And then around the world, we have dependencies, 7, I think, at the moment. One of them is in Tajikistan, in Dushanbe, the capital, the Central Asia Mission. They cover currently the 4, sometimes 5 countries, and they don't do research. They have the role of the project implementer. So this means you have a science project, and via the help of Hilfswerk, you implement projects in various countries. They help with communications. They deal with hierarchies, politics. They build a language, cultural barrier that is very difficult to overcome. So basically, they are the network between different stakeholders, facilitating also, if it's a scientific project, outreach, feedback processing, etc. Thematically, Hilfswerk is flexible, but of course, with the condition of doing sustainable jobs. And to understand how this works, I brought 2 examples. One is a very long project series of several projects in combination over the last 15 years, and the PAMIR project, which was a scientific short-term project. So PAMIR was also the most geologic project of Hilfswerk in Central Asia so far. It was conducted in 2011 in Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Afghanistan for natural hazards, for disaster risk reduction, creating more sustainable livelihoods for people, and creating a base for decision-making in emergency situations. So I think the scientific context is pretty much clear for us geoscientists. But what about the engagement of Hilfswerk? How do they operate? That starts out with pre-planning and logistics, feasibility studies, perception studies, because not every project that is designed from the donor view or the university view is right away implementable as such in certain countries, certain cultures, certain contexts. So Hilfswerk engage in gap analysis, feedback analysis. They help with publications. So each month in this project, we had a bulletin in English and Russian to keep everybody informed. They organize regional conferences, visits to villages, to develop with local scientists and the local population action plans for the 3 countries, what to do in disaster situations, and to have a strategy for decision makings in 120 villages. So I think it's quite obvious that these kind of activities, especially in their languages, that's pretty difficult to organize for us Westerners or Western universities in case you do a scientific project. And it's quite convenient to have an intermediary organization that can help you doing the job. Another project that's a bit out of the box, we have to say, it's mainly focused on agriculture and food safety, but also in 5 countries, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and once also Turkmenistan took part over the last 15 years on the initiative of Hilfswerk and its partners, and there are many. They conducted the whole project chain of CANDI, which is Central Asian nuts, dried fruit, and honey processing small and medium enterprises, Why agriculture? I think it's kind of obvious those countries are relying on agriculture. In Tajikistan, we have 24% of the GDP coming from agriculture. They have the smallest absolute and relative available arable land, but employ 40% of the population there. So this is kind of a sector that should be developed. They developed a support scheme for those enterprises, promoted their production, developed the processing sector, found strategies for export, and introduced quality standards. So whereas the science, they did a very smart move. They introduced to this project series 2 capacity building in higher education programs from Erasmus+. It adds to this project series food systems standards that are elaborated with universities, with academics, and also introduced those quality standards into curricula. And they are taught in 11 universities in Central Asia now. Of course, there are many activities, just some highlights. Hilfswerk then organizes trainings, meetings, roundtables to emphasize the exchange between the producers and the academics to teach them vice versa what is important for them. They organize publication and training manuals in different languages, also reader adapted. Not everybody is an academic, but you want to reach the people. Another very positive point is the creation of the Central Asian Working Group. That is a group of people who, simply spoken, carry on work after projects are finished. We don't want to see a budget and it stops and then everything else stops as well. So they carry on this job, and even sometimes the government joins in. Recently, the Tajik government decided to form agricultural clusters until 2040. That's also very positive. So time is short, lessons learned. We always learn something from each project, and every time we do a little better. But if there's one point learned, communication is a very powerful tool. And as we have heard already, talk between stakeholders, that's super important. And if we arrive to a point where we can optimize communication and neutrally represent stakeholders, you can only create a win-win situation, which is, of course, very positive for sustainable solutions. So around the world, Hilfswerk covers almost all sustainable development goals. Now it was a bit more in agriculture, but we have a variety of topics that will be important: pollution, raw materials, weather phenomena, floods, droughts, etc. So since Hilfswerk is not topic bound, we hope that in future we will work with different people. So just in case you're interested, you have ideas, please feel free to contact me. We also have an article recently published. I have a few copies if you want to have one, or you can download it. And thank you very much for your attention.
Okay, we have time for questions. There are any questions for Gisela?
No.
Yes. I'm not sure.
Thanks a lot. Who do you have in your, also in the Hilfswerk, who's working there? What makes them, gives them the possibility, opportunity to get into the sometimes very difficult structures to change something?
This question is hard to answer because we have different offices around the world, and not in every country is the same situation of networking. But in the case of Central Asia, we have our head of mission, Mr. Aslanov. He's in fact a mechanical engineer with strong communication talent. So we have various people who just understand their own culture well, which we Westerners often don't in such kind of countries. So it's kind of helpful to have people who have good connections. And with time, we're active since 20 years in Central Asia. So with time, the network grows. And each time you learn something new, how to deal with different peoples, different stakeholders. And with every project, you have different stakeholders. So you constantly adapt to it.
Thank you, Gisela. Any more questions? We got questions online?
No questions online.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll ask questions. Yes, sometime.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gazelle, for the presentation. You mentioned that your educational materials are translated into English and Russian for the Central Asian countries.
Yes.
But you also use local partners to reach out those that speak, other languages within the region. What other forms of barriers to communication, in addition to language, exist? And what kind of solutions has your organization come up with to address them?
First of all, maybe I didn't mention that, right? For every sub project, we have a sub page on our webpage, and we also have material in all Central Asian languages: Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Uzbek, like all the languages. Just for the project, we had translated into English and Russian. But now, especially for this agricultural project, we try to do it in the local languages because they become more and more important. So we try to reach people in their own languages and not in Russian.
Great. And are there other barriers in addition to language that you have to deal with when trying to communicate your science?
Well, the one barrier is, of course, that not everybody is an academic. So we constantly have to adapt to a language that is suitable for the attendees or the beneficiaries. And we are also working a lot with women empowerment, because usually it's the women who stay behind in Central Asia and that the men go to other countries to work. So sometimes it's literally them running the business. So they didn't have the same school education as their husbands sometimes. So we try to, language-wise, but also technically adapt material to them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.